easier for us and for our clients because we could just hop onto a meeting. But we know that there are questions, and basically everything is kind of, your rights stay the same, but they're a little different. And so the big question you're going to ask is about ESA and compensatory. We're going to chat very, very small, short, and we.
You mean ESY or ESA?
Today.
You said ESA.
I said ESA. Okay, I just
ESY.
came off of a 3.5 day due process hearing, sitting in this seat for 3.5 days, so I'm a little wired. But anyway, but I do have my flip-flops on, which is great. So we will answer your questions about ESY, but also ESA.
Oh, you will. I'm not ready for
compensatory, whatever you have, very relaxed, very comfortable. And we'll probably say, we don't know, and we don't know what's going to happen next year.
Or it depends.
Everything depends. Because I don't know how schools are going to open. Frankly, I don't want to disappoint anyone, but it's going to be tough. So
yeah, they may start on time, they may start late. I mean, that's things that they're talking about. And having it staggered so that, you know, they have smaller classrooms. There's a lot. And unfortunately, those answers we don't have for you, because no one knows. The Department of Education doesn't know yet. There are a lot of rumors, but we really don't know.
Have you all been going ahead with IEP meetings and MET meetings? Anyone having any problems with those? Not getting those scheduled? Just because that, yes, it looks like you're like going like that, so I'm not sure. So, but you've been having the meetings have been going forward, right? Anyone not okay. And that's
I did hear from a couple people who are having trouble getting meetings scheduled on Facebook, and I've also heard from people who have actually had pretty successful IEP meetings. So I think it's hit or miss.
But if they're entitled to a meeting, I mean, if it's your annual, and you can't delay it. So all timelines stay the same. There is no waiver.
Except for evaluations. That's
for the initial. For the red meeting. So if you request an evaluation, a school must convene a meeting within 15 school days. There are no school days. So schools have been telling parents, well, we have to wait until school starts. Now, if school does not begin, if we're not going back to school in the fall, then we'll be having other problems. And I'm sure ADE, Arizona Department of Education, will revisit that. Okay, but if you're asking for an IEP meeting, I mean, at the beginning when this was starting, we were getting calls. I wanted an IEP meeting. I said, just wait. If it's not an emergency, you know, just wait. And I think that for the most part, parents were, you know, some people wanted a response right away, and other people were just waiting because we're all in this together. So, but we can answer your questions about, you know, any issues, comp services. You basically, the answer is,
we gotta wait and see.
Almost a no, because there is guidance from the Arizona Department of Education, and they're relying on the Office of Special Education Programs that basically says, well, first of all, you don't get minute for minute, you don't get hour per hour. And a lot of times, if there's an issue, we've been telling parents, just go file a state administrative complaint. Not a due process. You do that on your own. You don't do that without an attorney. Let the state handle it. But the state is, because I am concerned judges are not going to ding school districts or charter schools for not providing services. So I say you have a better shot, and it'll be quicker to go for a state administrative complaint. All right. And also, just so you know, when you hear about due process, from the time you file a due process until you get a decision is 10 months. It's 10 months. Like the case I have that I went to hearing on this week, we filed in January. Our decision is, we had the hearing this week. Our decision is not expected until October, as opposed to a state administrative complaint where it's 45 days. And so you have a year to file those. And a lot of times I tell parents, file that. You don't get a good result, the result you want, you still have the time to file a due process, because that's 2 years. If you have a question, let's switch so that at least I can see the chat box. I'll answer them.
Oh, and I'll tell you, I'll read the first one. Someone said, what if you're trying to change the IEP to autism? Do you have to wait till the fall?
If you want, oh, clearly you want it changed, right? So if you want
Correct.
to change that, it's only done at a MET meeting. You can have a MET, but it depends what occasioned it. Because remember, the timelines are stay in place. So it depends.
It depends if you already had the evaluation for it. If you haven't had the evaluation for it, that's going to be problematic.
You have a medical diagnosis for autism, but not an evaluation.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't guarantee you anything. You know
Yes,
that.
Just recently, I'm learning as I go.
The school said that they could not reevaluate our son until the beginning of fall.
Mm-hmm.
Until the school, because they're supposed to do an observation of the student. Now, I've been asking some of the school districts if they would be willing to, while school was in session, now that summer's upon us, it'll be different. But I asked a couple of schools if they would have virtual evaluations, as long as they don't need to see an observation. If you're looking for learning disabilities, then we can't do it until there's a observation. But for autism, you might be able to get the school to agree to do it virtually, but they don't have to.
But did you ask for an initial evaluation? Is that what you're asking for? Okay, here's my diagnosis. I want an evaluation.
No, he already has an IEP, and they re-evaluated in January, but they didn't evaluate for autism. And we've been battling this since our son's been about 3.5. He's now 9, and we just got the diagnosis medically.
Hold on. I gotta stop you. Okay, when you say you got that the school didn't evaluate for autism, did you ask for an independent educational evaluation?
Yes, the IE.
Yes.
And they yesterday just turned us down. They told us that they
didn't test in all areas of society.
Now you're entitled to it, and they waited too long. When did you ask for the IEE?
We just asked for it
Last week.
2-3 weeks ago, and they got back to us yesterday saying that in their PWN, that they told us that we would have to wait until the beginning of the year.
No, okay.
Or I mean, the beginning of the school year in fall.
For what? For a MET or an IEE?
For the MET, because they said they did not do a thorough. They weren't testing for autism.
They don't get another bite. They had their opportunity. Now you get an IEE. So you should.
So that was a second question someone else asked too. If we're waiting for our district to respond to an IEE, can you go over the IEE process and what happens if the district denies the request?
Okay, so first I want to, so AZA now, someone said my son's school is starting again on Tuesday. What school is that?
Year-round, maybe?
Carrie, what school? I think she's the charter school.
Yeah, Arizona Autism Charter School. They're starting back up on Tuesday, Monday through, it's like a couple hours a day they're doing.
What? A summer program?
Yeah, it's a summer type program, appointment based, 2-to-1 ratio.
Oh, nice. Okay, what if you're trying to change the IEP to autism? That's Jessica to everyone.
And then Morgan's the one who asked for the IEE.
Okay, all right, so a school must so remember, the timelines do not change except for a RED meeting. The RED is the review of existing data. That's the first meeting that is had with parents once they request an initial evaluation. That changes because it's 15 school days and we don't have school days now.
Or if you're in the middle of evaluation. I have a client, the evaluation started right before COVID. They did not finish. So they're not going to get it done in the 60 days. So that timeline's waived until school resumes.
But if you're waiting to respond to the IE request, the law is that they must respond without
Delay.
unreasonable delay. Unreasonable delay. So the question is, what is unreasonable? Generally, 30 days is unreasonable. They have up until 30 days.
Oh.
There's no law that says that, but that's generally what's recognized as case law on it.
Okay.
So that would be 30 calendar days. Is
And
that-
and I'm sorry, for the IE, so what happened is we're kind of very similar, like with Jessica's situation. My son, we started with school refusal this year, so he hasn't even been in school like maybe 84 days this whole entire school year. They did an ADOS in school in December when he was only attending half day because we were still struggling to get him in. And then based on their results, he didn't qualify for autism, but we took him outside and we went to Dr. Mateo, and and so then we got our medical autism diagnosis, and then we had our IEP meeting. Well, so he was at one school. We went back to his home school because we thought maybe a change in environment, and plus they were looking for data and giving us the runaround. And so we got him back in his home school, had the IEP online April 30th, and then we said we would like you to consider the autism diagnosis by Dr. Mateo and change his eligibility from emotionally disabled to the autism. And so this, and also get us another functional behavior analysis assessment, and then I think it's ATI, and something else, because we did have an advocate with us. So we do have an advocate, but it's just, and so now they said that they had lost our email. That was the response from the district today, that it got into their junk email.
Did you only send it to one person?
No, we sent it to the school psychologist. So there were several emails. One was to, and then we had CC people, and then our advocate was CC'd on it. So we have the paper trail. It's a bunch of.
Okay, so here's what you do. Well, first of all, you always have to, when you send an email, always send it to 2, preferably 3 people, CC yourselves.
Okay.
Because one person could win the lottery and then they're not there anymore, or their computer breaks down. So that's how you document it. You could also do send received, see if they received it. But if you sent it to more than one person, file a state complaint.
Okay, state complaint.
Easy peasy. Go on. Let me see if I can get it for you.
That would be great.
I have it right here. I could probably do a share screen.
You could.
I could. I love share screen, but then you get to see everything that's open at the bottom. Okay, so nothing bad. All right, so let me do, are you letting me share screen? No, you disabled it.
Can I? Well, I'll let you. Let me figure out how.
Yeah, okay.
So if they come back and deny us the IEE, because you were saying like the due process is 10 months.
Oh, so you don't file due process. Here's what happens. If you request an IEE, and
yes,
that's the umbrella, could be an independent FBA, independent OT, IE, independent.
Right.
School has 2 choices. Yes, we will grant you that request. 2, no, and file due process against you. The only schools that are doing it are charter schools, and just a couple of them. Okay. So at that point, you look at, what is it? And the school is allowed to ask you what you disagree with. You don't have to answer. But I always tell parents, just say, it doesn't paint a picture of my son. Be a little more specific, because it could be just one part of it. Say they've done a comprehensive evaluation, but you didn't agree with the social emotional, you didn't agree with the adaptive part. Just ask for that. It may not be the whole thing. But I tell parents to be specific so that it looks like you're working with them, because there's a reason. If it's that you don't like the diagnosis, then you have to go a little more into the weeds and say, I don't think that you accurately assessed the communication, the social emotional, among other things. Always say among other things, so you're not backing yourself into a corner. Always, because if you don't, they'll say, well, you only told us about language. You only told us about social emotional. No, I said
right.
things. You know,
Hope, I made you the host, so you should be able to share screen now.
all right, so I'm
Be
going to
careful
do,
what you share.
I know, I'm very careful. So I am sharing.
I do have a question on that, Hope.
Do you see it? Wait, I just.
Oh,
wanna-
yes.
Yes.
You do? You got it? So,
Yeah, good job.
Yes.
So you see on the top, it says azed.gov, dispute resolution, state admin. But you basically go to the Arizona Department of Education website. And then
Oh, perfect.
actually, since I'm sharing the screen, I'm going to show everyone because it's really complicated. So this is my ADE. And if you, when you want to find dispute resolution stuff, you go to parents and students. You see that bar at the top?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to, that is it, right? Oh, no, you go to schools and teachers, special ed, exceptional student services, ESS. It's going slow, I guess, because you guys are on it. And that'll bring up this. And then here is where you have all of your resources for special education. So for due process complaint forms, for mediations, for state complaints, you then go to, it really is hard to find. I think they do this on purpose, laws and regulations.
It used to be much friendlier.
Yes. And then you go here, then you have another screen, and then you go to dispute resolution. Then you go to dispute resolution. So it's quite a few steps. Then you have mediation, due process, state complaints, facilitated IEP. Okay. So let me stop my share. Okay. I'm sorry. There was another question.
Yes. So when you're asking for the autism eval, like I had asked previously and they're saying that I didn't ask for the proper evaluation. How many other evaluations are there? I mean, we've talked about communication and having problems with reading and being emotionally delayed and academically delayed. And they said we had a miscommunication on what evaluations you were asking for.
You don't have to ask.
There's no such thing as a
You don't have magic words you have to ask. You just have to say it. And they have to evaluate in all areas of suspected disability, all areas. And that's up to them to decide. And if they missed it, that's it. Now it's your turn to get an IEE.
So when you sit at these meetings, you should be tape recording them. In the state of Arizona, you don't have to tell them you're tape recording, but I always want my parents to be forthright, because if you end up in a hearing before a judge, it's like, hey, I told them I was recording. You know, don't be secretive. You don't want them to be secretive, even though they are. So I'm going to record this. I'm going to record this because my husband's not here or my wife's not here, and they're going to want to know everything that was said, and I'm not going to remember it. So, or I don't want to take notes, or I have a disability with processing, so I can't remember, so I just want to tape record it, you know. That way it's not confrontational. It's not like, here's my tape recorder, I'm going to be taping today. So, you know, just because otherwise, you could even be cute and say, you know, otherwise we're going to fight about what was said, because we don't always agree. So now you've taped it, and then you could go back and listen to it. But at the RED meeting, the school is supposed to ask you what your concerns are. All right, so maybe you're not expressing it the right way. Maybe you say communication when you mean speech, or maybe you say he's not writing the right way. And instead of interpreting it as handwriting and occupational therapy, they're interpreting it as just a basic writing expression. So schools are getting smart to avoid this, and they're usually giving you checklists to make sure you've checked everything. So check everything.
Okay, Hope, can you follow up to that? So if I'm sitting at the meeting and I disagree with what they said and I want an IEE, how do I do that? Do I just ask for it? Do I send an email? How many days do they have to respond?
You say, you know, I don't agree with this, so I want an independent educational evaluation. I want an IEE. I want an independent evaluate, whatever it is. Any words, it doesn't have to be magic words, but as close as you can get is great. IEE, I want an independent educational evaluation. Very slowly, very clearly. Please put in the PWN, documented in the prior written notice that I have requested it. They're supposed to, all right? Once you say put in the PWN, they have to, and if they don't, at least you have it on record. Then they will send, and then go home and follow up, say, thank you so much for your time today. And I really do appreciate it. And just, you know, to confirm, one of the things I requested was an IE. I look forward to hearing from you. They respond generally within about a week. It's during the summer, so it may take longer, but schools, there are people around. And then I'd say within 30 days, they have to either say yes.
Wow, you give them, I wouldn't give them 30 days, but okay.
Well, it's
30
hard
days
to,
is not reasonable.
okay, it's hard to make a claim in less than, okay, whatever. So, but I would follow up. So, you know, say for instance, a week or two has passed. Don't sit and wait. I'm not saying sit and wait. Say, hey, remember I asked you for that, and just following up. That's all. Always be nice. Everything that you write is an exhibit. Do not curse on these things. Do not curse on tapes. Yeah, we have seen it. We've heard it all. So, you know, you're always going to be nice. And what they do is they'll say, here are your procedures. Here's how you do it. Tell us who you want. Here's a list of people. Now, most parents don't even read it. Why? Because it's a lot of reading that you get. Like, you probably never even read the procedural safeguards notice. And if you say you did, you didn't understand it, because I don't even know, I know lawyers wouldn't understand it. Oh, that's not very much anyway, is it? No. Okay, so you don't have to use the people on the list. But sometimes there are, like, sometimes Joe Gentry might be on a list. Sometimes there are pretty good people on the list. And it's just easier to go through them, so you're not fighting. But you can pick someone. Now, if you're picking someone who's $3,500 and in Maricopa County, they're usually charging $2,500, the school might give you a hard time. So we have a form letter that we've given them actually to a lot of the evaluators to give to parents that basically say, if the school writes back and says, well, we don't want to pay $3,000, the letter from the parent is, well, it's not, I don't know why you're denying $300. You know, we use Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones charges $300 an hour for 5 hours to review records, 2 hours to conduct this assessment, 3 hours to observe, stuff like that. So it all adds up, rather than just throwing a number out there.
And then how long, like, so I pick the person.
Oh, how long from that point?
Yeah.
That's up to the provider.
Okay.
We usually communicate with each other. I did file due process against, well, I don't have to say the school district's name, but we had been going back and forth. The attorney and me had been going back and forth, and I get along great with this attorney. And I kept, you know, finally it's like, I've had enough. And I filed due process. It's like, what? And I said, well, I had to file this due process to get you to respond. What happened was they said that my evaluator had not responded. I said, send me those emails. Well, the emails went to, they had her name wrong.
Oh.
I said, that's not our fault, because here's the email with her right name, and you knew about that, and she called, and blah, blah, blah. So now they had to pay my attorney's fees because they were just so careless. But that's because they didn't respond in time. But you don't want to have to do that. You don't want
And
to
so
have
the district will pay the provider. You don't have to pay the provider.
No, that's an independent educational evaluation. No, you are not paying. Now, if you go to Dr. Mateo and you say, and you're paying Dr. Mateo, they don't have to pay you back if you did that on your own. Unless you
Okay.
asked for an evaluation, they didn't do it, and then you do that. But you could bring in Dr. Mateo's, you know, gold ribbon report. It's fabulous. And the school still has if they haven't evaluated, they have a right to evaluate. They don't have to accept your report. So I always tell the parents, go and get the school's evaluation first. Sometimes parents don't trust a school. They'll say, I don't trust them. I'm going to get my own evaluation. I said, they're still going to have a right to evaluate. So
Right.
have them evaluate, and then you'll get an independent. Now, it doesn't mean that the school has to agree with the independent. They just have to consider it. Oh, Lori, you had a good case. Tell them about your case you just had with the non-named
Oh,
school.
yes, I won't name the school, but I had a
Won't
case.
name the charter school, no.
I had a parent go to the school, ask for an evaluation for autism. No, he doesn't have autism. We're not going to do it. The parents said, well, I'm going to get an outside evaluation. They said, okay, get an outside evaluation and bring it to us. So
Do
the
they pay
parent,
for it?
no. Well, they did now. But the parent went to Dr. Gentry, got a beautiful report. The school, again, I'm not naming them for, I don't want to embarrass them. They actually took his report, cut and pasted it into their own evaluation, which found that the child had autism, special education needs, or specially designed instruction needs for autism, speech and language, and OT. And they cut and pasted that. And then they sent the parent a PWN saying, yes, your child has a disability, but he does not require special education, and denied it.
Wow.
I called the school district's attorney and I said, hey, look what I'm looking at. There's something wrong here. Someone fell down on the job here. And she said, okay, let's have another MET, and we'll do another we'll do our own evaluation. I said, no, kind of like what we were telling Jessica. They had their opportunity. They said no. They said they'd accept Dr. Gentry's report. In fact, they even put that in a PWN that they were accepting Dr. Gentry's report because he was a
Valid psychologist.
Yeah. So they said no. So we've had to file due process. We filed due process, and then they realized what they did. So they try to settle by saying, let us evaluate. And I said, no, you've already had your opportunity to evaluate. So what we want now is we want an autism diagnosis. We want eligibility. We want our attorney's fees, and we want the fees for Dr. Gentry's report. And we got it all. And the child now has an IEP with the autism eligibility.
Jane has a question, which I think is a good one. You might get this question during this program, but we are seeking compensatory services. Is the school expected to be accessing phone, email over the summer? Our official last day of school is tomorrow. So basically, now that it's summer, how do we go about requesting these services?
You're gonna have to wait until school starts again. There's gonna be an IEP meeting. Every parent should be keeping track of any services they don't think that they got, but the children will be assessed to see where they were the last day of the school year, where they are when they return to school. If there was regression, then they will decide, and I know it sounds like ESY, but that's what they're going to be doing it on, is if there was regression and there is a need for compensatory.
Last day of the school year, last day they physically attended?
Last day of before COVID.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how much data, I don't think they all ran and took data, so that's going to be interesting, but this is what they're saying, that they will then compare it, and if the child has regressed, how much time do they need? They're not going to look, if you lost 6 hours of services, you're not going to necessarily get 6 hours of services, probably not.
Okay.
They'll give you what you need to catch up if they give you anything. Because of that, they are supposed to be doing, to the maximum extent possible, all the services that are in the IEP. Now, that's not feasible for everybody, but that is what they're supposed to be doing. If they're not doing that, I'm telling parents, keep track of what you're not getting. I'm not telling anyone they're going to get minute for minute, but those are the areas that we're going to ask them to look at when we get back. And so unfortunately, you're going to have to wait until school's back in session.
Let's clarify. So if I was supposed to get an hour of speech a week for my child, and since COVID, the speech therapist is not providing any speech.
Oh, no.
That's a violation, because to the maximum extent possible. Why? Now, I had a couple of cases where instead of getting a half hour, they were only giving 15 minutes because the speech person was trying to give everybody the therapy virtually, and it was tough to schedule. But to not give any speech, there's no reason for that. There's no reason not to be getting IEP services virtually if you can. Speech, even some OT has been given virtually. So there, counseling. So I would have been asking why I'm not getting it. If they just say COVID, that's not enough, and you probably will get compensatory. Probably not going to get the hour for hour, but you're going to get something.
So what hopefully the parent was doing was writing to the school, say, hey, I'm supposed to get speech, now it's Friday, I didn't get any speech this week, and documenting it, because what I anticipate school's saying is that we try to get in touch with the parent and we couldn't, or we called, we couldn't, or they didn't respond to a Zoom. So you want to make sure that that was all documented. But again, to go back to what Lori said, if you're getting some of the services anyway, you'll only get what's equitable. That is to kind of place the child where the child would have been if the services had been provided, but it is not minute for minute. It's not what's called like a contract remedy, you know, not dollar for dollar. It's
Jane, does that answer your question?
It does. I guess I kind of had a follow up to that, and I might have lost my train of thought. But I guess I didn't lose my train of thought. I have to figure out how to word this now, though. So I did not kind of track that stuff because honestly, when everything started, I didn't realize what was happening, what was going to happen. And I had heard the compensatory services thing early on, but I guess I misunderstood what that was. I thought that was something that, you know, I wouldn't have to document because I didn't receive it. But at the same time, so my son, I'm thinking about, he's in kindergarten and he gets speech and OT, but I would have not expected him, like, if they said to me, we're going to offer this virtually, I would have said there's no way that's going to work, because it wouldn't for him. But they were sending like ideas of things I could work on at home. But I'm not a speech therapist. I'm not an OT. I did what I could, but do I have a case there to say we need a little more still, or?
You just go back to the school district and you say what you told us. You know, I didn't understand that. But here's the thing. My kid is so far behind now. We need to catch him up. What can you do? Rather than, hey, I'm going to sue you. I mean, just try to work.
Yeah.
But
and I do understand. I mean,
yes, say, I just want to know, like, I know from other people that they were getting remote sessions. How come no one ever contacted me?
But yeah, although she's saying she wouldn't have
No,
thought
but
it
they
it
would
wouldn't have worked. Or they should have had.
You know it's going to work. I mean, you don't
they
know.
could have tried it.
And then they have,
That's true.
Used it would have
That's
been
true.
but you didn't refuse. Wasn't offered.
Right.
they could have had a session with you to teach you how to do it.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
So, you know, just be nice, because everyone's going to be coming back and they're going to be all crazy, and just, hey, I want to work with you, but you should have done something, you guys.
Yeah, and we've had good luck all along so far with communication and everyone kind of being on board with what he needs up to this point. So I don't foresee necessarily a huge issue, but just kind of how to approach it, I guess. So.
Should she send an email like now?
They're administrators. So if the last day of school is when? Today?
Tomorrow.
They're still there next week. The administrators are there next week, and there are people throughout the summer. Their attorneys are working.
Right.
They don't stop working.
So someone else asked a kind of a same follow-up. What expectations, not time or actual experience, should we have for what virtual distance ed therapies look like? Our school, ST, didn't want to do virtual sessions and sent paperwork for me to practice with him.
So let me just, first of all, they're getting paid. They're all getting paid, these teachers. So they should be trying. I don't know why they don't want to do virtual sessions. They have to be offered. What it looks like is different for everyone. So, and like I said, all you have to do is, they could have said, I'll teach you, Mom, how to do it. But that they didn't even try, that's the obligation. It's supposed to work.
Evelyn tried.
So that was my question. So I actually have in an email from his speech therapist, I don't want to do virtual sessions. Is that okay? And I wrote back, I mean, fine. Like, I can't make you do a virtual session. She's not that great anyway, if I'm being honest. Like, so she wasn't going to engage with him on the computer to begin with. So I just hired a private therapist because our insurance covers it and we're lucky.
Oh, okay. So so here's the thing. If it was paid, you know, then don't aggravate yourself. But you need to let the school know, and you should let them know, this isn't right. I don't know what she was doing, but she may not have wanted to teach this way. my kid doesn't want to go to school this way either.
Right.
But that's the way.
Right.
And she was
So-
getting paid.
But for next year, because I just let it go, quite honestly, when I could fulfill that need myself, like you said, why am I going to stress out in a stressful time? Had I not, different story. But for next year, though, when we are possibly talking about what life will look like, should I have an expectation that they'll be willing to do virtual?
Yeah,
Or-
you're right.
Yeah, that you're going to insist on. You mean if we don't go back to physical?
Right, if we don't go back and this is what life looks like for 6 more months.
I'm not going to continue to pay for this on my own. You owe it to him, and it's in his IEP. And so, yes, you'll have to get someone that's willing to do it virtually.
And what you may want to do is you may want to just say, this is required, this is in his IEP, it's required for FAPE, F-A-P-E. And if you're not going to provide it, this is my 10-day notice, 10 business day notice, that I'm going to get the services and I'm going to seek reimbursement. You're sending it to her, but you're also sending it to 2 other administrators. One could be the special ed coordinator, one could be the special education district director. So at least that way, if you go with your plan of paying for it, you could try to seek reimbursement.
Okay.
That's,
And Lori, you said that you had had a meeting today where they're sort of discussing what might happen in the fall.
Yeah, it was actually last week with ABE.
And what were they saying?
They, I don't know. We don't know. Stop asking. We don't know. But I mean, they're concerned too. They really don't. And like I said, there are all kinds of rumors or potential ways of doing it. A late start. I mean, it's possible that the day will come and everything will open and it'll be fine. I don't know how they're going to do that because they have to have smaller classrooms. They have to have wipe downs. I can't imagine kindergarten, first, grade school kids
touching the
social
mouth.
distancing. I mean, it's just, I don't know how they're going to do it.
Well, but there's some kids on the spectrum who do want a social distance.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
But-
So I have the feeling some, and it's probably gonna have to be some creative ways for some of the schools. Some have been talking about, late start, so they have staggered classes, so half a class and half a class. Probably, be shorter classes. So they don't know. They are working on it. Supposedly, they're gonna have some information soon. Soon is not defined. I don't know if that's what that is, but obviously, the same things are going on in colleges and universities too. They don't know what they're going to be doing. So,
Yeah,
my personal thought is they're going to probably start virtually and then hopefully ease into it, or maybe offer, because there are some kids that can't learn virtually. It's just really tough for them. So maybe they'll have classes for those kids, and then people that are willing to still do it virtually. Some people might be enjoying this. I don't know.
What I would say is for the speech therapist who doesn't want to do it virtually, I would tell the special education director that the speech therapist said that, but hey, I found a private Arizona Department of Approved private day school where they can offer that. So if you can do that, just friendly.
Pay the $25,000 and they'll do it.
Right.
I don't want to do it. I can't even, because I was a teacher. I couldn't even, we didn't have computers in those days, but I couldn't even imagine ever saying, oh, I'm just not going to do what I'm supposed to do.
Well, I was going to say that ASU sent out an announcement saying that they were going to be in person, but the announcement was a little vague. And I also know, I have a couple friends who teach at ASU, and they were told to prepare to be online distance learning for next fall. So I don't even think the schools that made the announcement that they're gonna open are actually for sure they're gonna open.
Yeah, I agree.
Didn't you say you heard of half programs?
Yeah, I'm hearing that some colleges are thinking about having half their campus come back. I don't know how they're going to do that, and I don't know how they decide who is, but that's what they've been talking about.
Okay,
The
we had a
colleges are
question
different.
from,
Oops, I was
Jess?
just gonna add real quick, the colleges are different because if they've got a big football program, they have to have students on campus in order for them to play football. Now, I don't know what capacity they have to have students on campus, what percentage, but they can't have football in a closed campus. That's just, so there's going to be some sort of opening up at ASU, but I don't know to what extent.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think the Wall Street Journal said that 15 to 20% of all college kids are predicted to take a gap year for this coming year. And I know our family is very much considering that because my son is in the School of Music. And let me just tell you, distance learning is not really working for the School of Music. So,
School of Music, is that something new?
yeah, he auditioned and got accepted to the School of Music, and he wants to be a sound engineer.
Okay. Wow.
So we'll see. Jessica asked a question: how should I respond when they ask what I'm looking for in an outcome of an autism IEP? They keep asking this and how it affects them academically, and I'm not sure how to respond.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this was part of my due process hearing. Okay, academics is one part of education, especially for a kid on the spectrum. Behavior, social, emotional, those are even more important, okay, I think. Being able to get along with others, because the whole purpose of the IDEA is to prepare students for further education, employment, and independent living. So if they're doing okay academically, great. But if they're not interacting with other students, how are they going to work together? How are they going to live independently? How are they going to get along in the world? So for a kid on the autism spectrum, it is, everything else is equally, if not more important in my book. You know, my background is in teaching kids with emotional disabilities, and they needed to learn how to get along with others. And so that's what you have to tell the school. I want social emotional, I want communication, you know, pragmatic speech, I want adaptive skills. So it depends how that child is functioning. But if the school doesn't know, say, hey, let's get an IE. Dr. Gentry will give you some recommendations. Dr. Long will give you some recommendations. But really, I mean, they don't know what, you're not the, I mean, it's great that they're asking parent input. That is wonderful. But they're the experts. They're the educators. What school district is that? Well, I can ask that. Yeah. What school district is that? Sounds like it's
Esperanza.
We're in Deer Valley School District, and they've asked that. And then even when I called the state this morning after talking to my advocate, she told me since they denied the IEE, we should talk to the state resolution department, talk to Lori. And Lori asked, Lori
Bird?
Yes, she asked, what's the benefit of this? Is it going to benefit your son to go through all this? How is it going to affect him academically? And I'm like,
Lori Bird asked you that?
I'm kind of at a loss. She goes, if it's not going to benefit him immediately, you know, maybe you should wait until the fall. And I was like, okay. She goes, you know, and she tried to explain, she sent us the links that you were showing earlier, try to explain, you know, you can file a complaint, and then after a complaint, you can go for a due process. She goes, and time-wise, she goes, by the time this is done, it might be the beginning of this school year and fall anyway. She goes, do you really think putting yourself through that is something that you want to do, or do you want to wait until the fall for them to evaluate him?
Well, let me ask you this. What's the eligibility now?
The eligibility is he has a specific learning disability and the other health impairment.
Okay, so here's the thing. A lot of times kids do have OHI that have autism. It's kind of, you know, differential diagnosis. You can't tell one from the other sometimes. It changes from year to year. Lori's kid had almost every eligibility under the sun till they found autism. So it doesn't matter. It's not supposed to matter what the label is. So it's the needs that drive the services. I do think that having autism as an eligibility is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, later on you could get, and Karen can talk about that, the Social Security benefits, that's, you know, but a teacher sees a child who has an autism eligibility different than they see a child who has ED or a child who has OHI. They see it as, okay, poor kid, he doesn't know how to get along with others, as opposed to, oh, he's got ED, he knows what he's doing, and he's purposely hitting everyone else. And then it just, with autism, you're automatically getting OT, speech, so you're not fighting for it. But what Lori Bird was telling you is that how much of a fight do you want to have? Because they have to meet his needs based on, they had to provide services based on his needs. So, so you can get it, but you just want to get it.
Good. I just, part of me understood what she was saying. She was talking about, does he have accommodations for behavior already? And I said, yes. I go, but we're exploring more accommodations. Like, they didn't want to give him a para, even though his teacher even advised that and suggested that should be something that he has, just because he has these meltdowns because they're not addressing other needs with routine and schedules so bad that she can't even teach like a full lesson. So it's not only hindering him, it's hindering other children who aren't being able to have a science lesson or anything else. And the principal told us he doesn't meet the requirements for a para. So we were hoping with the autism that would open up more things for him, where he could be in a smaller class, where he could actually have somebody listen to us about him needing a stricter routine, or someone to work on him when things aren't, as strict of a routine. And having a para, I mean, they're putting him in 4th grade and we're still barely reading at a 1st grade level. And yet they're saying, oh, we're moving along. He's making improvements.
Okay, so first of all, you have to get a functional behavior assessment. So you have to get the FBA. Number 2 is, do you want him in a more restrictive setting? Because he would qualify for that, and I'll tell you why. Do you want him in a self-contained or more restrictive, more?
After discussing it, I go back and forth. I'm not sure what self-contained means, but I mean, we've talked to Daniel because we were going to put him in the autism. It's not the charter school.
ACEs, right?
No, it wasn't ACEs. They denied us from ACEs.
Oh, don't go to ACEs.
Don't go to ACEs.
Do not go to ACEs. ACEs isn't bad for some kids, but you have to sign a liability waiver. They make you sign something that says you cannot sue us if we hurt your kid. And if you do try to sue, we'll go to arbitration. And if you do try to sue, you only have 90 days to do it. Do not do it. All of the attorneys, the school attorneys in the state of Arizona, know that they will never recommend any of our clients go to ACEs.
And ACEs is the only school that advocated against restraint and seclusion bills. So I helped run 3 bills. And ACEs was the only school that showed up every single day and fought parents because they didn't want any liability. Like, I wouldn't send my dog to ACEs.
Now there was, I mean, I'll tell you, I used to like it. It was great for some kids. It really was.
The school district actually denied Daniel and said that he doesn't meet the requirements for there. But we looked into this summer of going to the Autism Academy. It's the only charter school here. And they accepted Daniel. And so now we're wondering, should we continue down the path in a regular public school to try to get that autism on there? Or should we go to the charter school?
Charter schools could give it to you. Charter is a public school.
They could give you the autism diagnosis.
Okay, because then when you talk to
IEP.
Yeah.
When talking to Daniel, it made my heart break because he's like, Mom, I just want to be with people that are like me, that understand that I don't want to be touched, that I don't, they make me look them in the eye and I don't want to look them in the eye.
That is,
and I don't like,
oh my God.
I don't like the way, the water feels and, and they make me wear the certain, I don't know, it's not like his clothes, but certain things that they've talked about with like weights, he's like, I don't want it on me. It hurts. This hurts. And so I just feel so bad.
Jessica, you know what? Carrie is on our Zoom call, and Carrie's son goes to the Autism Charter School, and maybe offline you guys could talk, because she's had a really good experience, and I think it might be helpful to connect with a parent that actually has a child that goes there. So maybe you guys can, the chat box can exchange information so she can sort of tell you what's going on with that school. Her child's been there for several years, and she's on the PTA, and she's very happy with it. So that might be a good connection for you guys.
Did you say, Jessica, that they were going to send him to ACES, that the district was going to?
No, we asked last year because someone told us that that might be a better placement because they'd work one-on-one with him in that. And the school said no, he didn't meet the requirements for it.
We'll definitely check in with Carrie, because I think the two of you might be able to really connect and get some good feedback about that. One other thing, Hope, I don't know how you feel about this, but one of the things that I've been hearing from families on the DDD end is families are starting to get denied DDD because their IEP doesn't say autism. And they're using the IEP to deny either getting into DDD or staying within DDD. And I've heard this at least 10 times in the last 6 months. So yeah. I'm telling families they should fight for it because it'll impact their ability to stay within the state system.
Absolutely. I do a lot of DDD appeals with, and it's funny, when DDD has an IEP that's really strong, they say, oh, the IEP doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with anything. But if it's IEP's, beneficial to them, then they're all over it.
Yeah.
And in my hearings, I always explain to the judge, educational diagnosis, we're not looking, I'm sorry, an educational IEP is not going to be the same thing for DDD. We should be looking at the medical. Obviously, I'll do the opposite if the IEP is helpful to me, but yeah, you should definitely fight it. And my thing is you always appeal the DDD decisions. Many, many times you're going to succeed.
Okay. Thank you.
And I don't know where Carrie is, but Jessica, if you have trouble.
Carrie just wrote.
You sent us some information, so we're good.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Did I answer all the questions here? I don't know.
I think we just went through them all.
Oh, I don't know.
What do you think of families that are having kids that are falling very behind already? So by the fall, they're going to be super behind. What kind of plan can the school even put together to make up that amount of lost time, do you think?
And they're probably not going to have to. Unfortunately, I mean, this was an extremely unforeseen situation that we're all in together. They're not singling out just students with special needs. It's not that they're doing, all kids are going to be behind, obviously, unless, there's some parents that may have, had the wherewithal and the finances to do private education and keep the kids up. But for the general population, it's all in the same boat. So hopefully they're going to be meeting. It's going to be crazy when it goes back. I can only imagine. There's going to be tons of IEP meetings. They're going to have to look at kids on an individual basis. If the school is smart, I think at some point what they're going to do is just do a general offer of some kind for everyone to get more education so that maybe it would put off some of the claims. But yes, your child is going to be behind. Even
the typical kids are going to be behind.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, but there's the kids with disabilities who will suffer the most because typical kids can pick stuff up even just from watching TV.
But
do you think that because parents will have both, right? They'll have a typical kid and a kid with a disability. Do they have any extra rights for their typical kid to have things made up in the fall?
I think that's the idea. If obviously if typical kids got something, then special needs students are going to be entitled to it. So they're going to have to be very careful not to do that.
Unless Congress enacts something, there are no rights now. You know, and that's the whole thing. Even when parents call us, first question: does child have a disability, an IEP, or 504? Whatever you're calling about, they just don't have rights. It's not like kids with disabilities. And forget it if you're in a private school.
What do you think? Like some of the schools start in July, right?
Yes.
So are you in, did you hear anything about schools starting later?
Yes.
And going longer?
Rumors that rumors, nothing definitive, that schools are going to be starting late.
And when do you think when would you expect them to have some kind of announcement about how they want to proceed?
They did not have an answer to that question last week. They really don't.
So you know you can get a lot of these answers. Do you know how to find it? Well, you keep talking, Lori, and I'll just
No,
get it.
they're working on it, but you know, it's not just schools, it's everything. It's everything. So they're kind of waiting to see. I mean, we don't have a vaccine, so you know, I at one point I heard, well, as soon as we have a vaccine, it'll be fine because everybody will get inoculated. Well, first of all, you know, we're going to have issues with people that aren't going to get vaccinated, but second, we're not getting the vaccine that quickly. Certainly not by July. And so they're going to have to come up with another plan, and yet they have to do it. I mean, we have to, like everything else, open up the country, get everybody back to doing things, but you also, especially with kids that, I don't know how you're going to do social distancing, we have to make sure we're not going to recreate it. So I know that the ADA would love to just open up the schools, but they're going to have all kinds of procedures, written procedures for what they're going to be doing and how they're going to get it accomplished. I don't know, the cost is probably going to be astronomical. And I think personally that they're going to realize that they're going to need to continue the online school or delay school.
So you should all bookmark this. Let me see if I can move this over so you can see it. Okay, so just let's take a screenshot. azed.gov /special education / and just type in COVID in the little box on the right and you'll see it. And then this gives you all the updated information. And so this was last updated May 15th. So it's updated about every week. You can find everything here.
ADE, just so you know, ADE was having weekly meetings. They are now going to every 2 weeks. They're spreading them out longer because of the summer. I don't know if that means they'll be working in between those meetings or not, but yeah, I couldn't tell you when they're going to have an answer.
It'll be interesting because I talked to DDD this last week, trying to figure out, because you know they've allowed parents to be paid for providing care, and they're allowing HAB via Zoom. They're allowing a lot of things that they don't normally allow, and they won't allow when the emergency is over. And so I asked them what their criteria was for the emergency to be over, and they're like, we don't know. So they have no idea when they're going to change what their direction is either. So I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. And I think anybody's afraid to say because it's a moving target, you know.
Yeah, it is.
We just don't know.
It is. So do you guys have any other questions? Anyone? Nope. Oh my gosh, you guys, you made them speechless.
Wow.
Let me make one comment about ESY.
Yeah.
It's probably, late or getting to the point where it's too late. But if anyone didn't have their meeting 45 days before the end of the school year to determine if they're entitled to ESY and school is still in session in your district, you should ask for it. They still have to have it. They've all been told, the districts have all been notified that they still have to do that and they have to offer ESY.
Oh, really?
Yes, they have to offer it. It has to be offered virtually. So yes, that they are not getting out of that. So if for some reason your school said you're not getting ESY because of the COVID, they're wrong and they will owe you for that.
And And if school starts late, Lori, like let's say they decide to start a month late or something, will they then have to go a month longer to make up that time?
They're discussing it. They're trying to figure out if maybe they either shorten some of the breaks, because they still have to have a certain number of days of school. So they're talking about how they're going to do that. Of course, yes, a late start could be a problem also if they have, shortened days so that they can have 2 sets of classes. It's going to be a moving target.
Well, and I think it's so hard because I know, my kid's college age, so it's easier for me, but I have lots of friends whose kids are little and they're trying to actually have a job and then their kids are home.
I agree. I don't know how I would do it now if my kids were still little.
I mean, and I don't know how long you can do that without actually losing your mind.
Well, do you know, this is why Total Wine is open as an essential service. No, I said to someone, I said, I am so lucky if I drank. Anyway, that Total Wine is open. And someone said it really is an essential service because, I didn't know this, because they see it as a mental health need.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I know I rely on it. I mean, I have to say, just like my kid's college, so I mean, it's a lot easier, but moving him home in the middle of a semester, and he's a grown man who takes up a lot more room than I'm used to, and we have a small house, and we've been used to him not living at home. It's very crowded, and it takes a lot of adjustment. So I can't imagine having small kids and trying to work and keep it all together.
Yeah, and depending on how long they're going to delay school, I'm talking K through 12, I think it's my personal opinion and not based on anything, is that they're going to have to start virtually if they don't have a date. They're going to have to start because you're right. I don't know how they'd catch up. Otherwise, they're going to be.
Now, would the school district have to pay for like the special ed kids to have some kind of hab at home or that could help the child do virtual education?
Good question.
You have IEP meetings probably that are going to be asking for AT, assistive technology. And I have a lot of clients that are getting assisted in that way to learn how to do the speech or the OT online and even just regular classes. But there are some kids that actually absolutely cannot because of their disabilities do virtual.
So someone asked, if we don't go back in the fall, can we hire our teachers on the side as private tutors?
If you want to pay them, if you can.
Yeah, you're not going to get reimbursed for it.
Yeah.
So it might be
I
some
understand
of the
that.
people were applying for ESA because they were anticipating that school wouldn't get back and they wanted that money to hire private teachers.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yesterday, today, May 15th. Oh, last Friday was the last day to get ESA.
To do that. Someone else just asked, how does an IEP facilitator work?
Before that question, there was, will some school decisions be made at the district level or so AD is the umbrella. So if anything, districts can do more, but they can't do less. Okay. But they can't open unless AD says you're open. That comes from the governor. I hope that is.
And the governor did say school would be open in the fall, but his message seemed kind of vague to me. So.
Well, he doesn't know. It's like
open physically or open virtually.
Right.
Well, he was vague.
I think it will start either on time or close to on time, but I think it's going to be virtual.
So.
If we do go online virtually, like in my situation, I mean, my son he was refusing to go to school, and we were just in the process that week before COVID where we were trying to get him in and trying to get that support, and then COVID hit, and he hasn't attended any of the Zoom meetings. I mean, we're serious in crisis right now. We can't, and we've been struggling since August. And, at the beginning of the school year, it was our fault as parents because we weren't getting him there. And then finally in January, after he was hospitalized at Phoenix Children's because of his severe meltdowns and the trauma that was caused with restraining him at school, it's just been a spiral snowball effect. And it just scares me that if we go on to online, we're not going to get him anywhere.
And it's not going to help you because if, I have a headache, it doesn't help your headache, but you're not alone. There are not, I shouldn't say a ton of people, but there are other people in your situation that are going to probably have to make some exceptions for that.
So
Yeah.
they were starting to get him there, and now, yeah.
I mean, to regress. So the other thing that might happen is they might have some schools that open just, for one-on-one or small classes. I mean, if you have less than 10 kids, it's probably going to be a little easier. I would think you'd have a good argument if there are even private schools that do that you would be entitled to get that.
Okay.
What about the school paying for some kind of therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, something to help this child feel more comfortable? Is the school obligated to provide some kind of mental health intervention?
Only things such as counseling if they needed to access the general curriculum. Schools are really hurting, so it's going to be tough to get them to pay for things. Not that they're allowed to. Someone asked about a facilitated IEP. So you go to this page and in dispute resolution, and then you click on facilitated IEP, and you can request. The school actually has to request it. So you have to make the request to your school, and they don't have to agree to it. If they're smart, they will, because it really is pretty good.
It was suggested that we might do that instead of making a complaint.
And yeah, I mean, I always like that. It depends who you get. So the facilitators are usually the same people who do the mediations. They're all trained in special education and they're trained in mediation. There's only one of them who is a lawyer, but that doesn't really make her any better. She's just a lawyer, but the point is that they're not. And it's some of them are retired special ed people, but they're neutral. They do facilitated IEPs. Scottsdale Unified has a psychologist on staff who does facilitated IEPs. And I've been there, and of course everyone's on the best behavior when the attorneys are there, but I encourage parents to always, the last thing you want to do is litigate. That's the last thing. You want to
Absolutely.
And so I like an IEP facilitated meeting. And, it depends who it is. Like I said, some are stronger than others, some are better than others. Even when I have a mediation following due process, it depends who it is.
Well, we're in the Deer Valley District. Do you know who it would be?
It doesn't matter. They're all over the state.
So they pick someone and we don't get a choice?
No.
Oh, so, okay.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Just wondering how that worked.
No, but they're good. I mean, they're good. They're trained. There's only a handful, and yeah.
I don't know if you can answer this question legally or not, but from my perspective, I don't know if this has changed, but Deer Valley is one of the districts that's more difficult to get things that you need for your kiddo. Would you say that? That
it's more difficult to get what?
Get what you need for your kid through Deer Valley than maybe some other districts?
Yeah, hold on. What is that?
They're cleaning the office.
The bell is driving me crazy. Okay. So, yeah, we hear that. It's a large school district. I do think, and I know I hear not great things, but I do believe that the special ed director there does have children. She, does believe in the children, but it's a district that needs to be broken into.
It's
just too huge. She doesn't know what's going on. And you do have I've met some really not great people within the district. So.
Would you also say, Hope, that given the COVID thing, it's going to be more difficult, not less difficult, to get help from the district for next year?
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by that. Do you not hear it? Do you hear it?
Yes, I hear it too. I'm trying to pretend I don't.
They're not even opening the door.
Okay, what?
Do you think that given this COVID and the difficulty the schools are having to meet any of the kids' needs is going to mean that they're going to be maybe less responsive than we would like them to be for the special ed children in the fall?
I do. And I think it's not even going to be that it's intentional, but I think it's going to happen. And I think that the overseers such as ADE or OCR are gonna be much more lenient. I do. And it's not fair, but I think they're gonna give the school districts a break when they're doing some of the violations, because it's such a tough thing.
Right, it's never happened
I
before.
don't think it's gonna be, I think if it looked intentional or truly discriminatory, they'll be dinged. But if it's just something like, funding or lack of teachers, they're gonna probably be let off the hook a lot easier anyway.
Does anybody have any final questions for Hope or Lori? Anyone? I think you guys did such an awesome job.
Thanks for
You
having
guys-
me.
Thank you guys for doing this for us. You guys are awesome.
I hope you guys all stay safe and yeah,
I
it's
hope
been
you go
fun.
back to
I mean,
school.
I'm sorry that I always say it's so hard to meet people under these circumstances, but
Well, you know what? This was really needed and lots of people had questions, and I'm so grateful that you guys did this, because now when people ask, we now have people who know how to answer on Facebook and stuff and help people out. And you guys are always so amazing and give so much back to our community. I just want to thank you for taking an hour and a half of your time and donating it to our families and answering questions.
we love you guys.
All right,
Wait, I want to
thank
show
you.
everyone what you got me. Hold on.
It's good to see you.
Hold on. This is one of the
Oh.
gifts Cynthia got me.
Now, is that gonna be?
Dog. That and all my dogs love Cynthia. Yes, and
They're adorable. I know someday I'm going to have to come visit and bring you some doggy cupcakes when we're finally allowed to meet.
Yeah.
I know.
When there's no social distancing.
Bye.
Okay, be well, everybody.
Everybody have
Thanks
a
for
great
coming.
day.
Thank you.
Bye now.